In this video, I'm going to give you 12 tips for planting your vegetable garden so that you can have your best growing season yet. So my very first tip, and this is a very important tip, is always plant extra. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, say you wanted to grow 20 tomato plants in your vegetable garden. Instead of growing 20 tomato seedlings indoors, you want to grow 40. Well, the exact number doesn't really matter, but I would suggest to grow at least double the amount of plants you actually want to put into your garden. Well, why would you want to do this? One of the biggest reasons is that you want to be able to choose the strongest plants to go into your garden. So, if you have extra plants, what that means is that you can choose which of those plants you want to put into your garden. So you get to choose the strongest ones. That's a great advantage to that. Another reason why you should always plant extra is just in case something goes wrong. Just in case some of the plants somehow die, maybe the hardening off process doesn't work out the way you want it to, or maybe your cat steps on the plants and tramples them. But it's always good to have extras as backup. Very important point. My second tip for planting your vegetable garden is to be realistic. What does this mean, you ask? Well, it means that if you live in a colder climate, like me, and you think you're going to grow a lemon tree out in your front yard, think again. I know this seems harsh and it seems pessimistic, but you got to be realistic with yourself, with your climate. You can't expect to grow tropical fruits in a colder climate. So you want to make sure that you choose crops, choose vegetables that are well suited to your specific growing climate. For example, I live in southwestern Ontario, so I can go online and I can look up, what grows well in zone 5B, for example. And you just want to research into what specific varieties are going to do best in your area. And that's very important because you want to make sure that your crops are actually going to produce, they're going to have enough time to produce. And as I say with tropical fruits, like lemon trees, for example, are they going to survive the winter here? No, probably not. So my third tip for you guys is to make sure you time your seed starting correctly. Now, if you look at any seed pack, you're going to see something called days to maturity. Now, what does that mean? Well, in general, it means if I plant that transplant into the ground, how long will it take for that plant to produce fruit? So say on a pack of tomato seeds, it says 85 days, okay? So that means if I plant a transplant, approximately 85 days later, I'm going to see fruit. So why is days to maturity important? Well, for example, peppers take usually a long time to mature. So what that means is that I'm going to want to make sure that I plant my peppers indoors earlier so that they're going to have more time to mature. So you want to plan your sowing based on days to maturity on the seed packet. So for example, say a pepper plant takes 100 days to maturity. Okay? That's a long time. So what that means is that I'm going to want to plant those pepper seeds indoors early. I usually do mine beginning of March, end of February. And then something like tomatoes that say take 85 days, you want to plant those a little later. So for example, I plant mine usually end of April or early May. But basically, you just want to make sure that you time your seed sowing correctly based on the days to maturity. And if you want to know for specific crops or specific vegetables, when to do this, you can easily just do a Google search of that specific variety and say, when should I plant cucumbers? When should I plant carrots? And so that's tip number 3. Tip number 4 is plant a variety that you have grown before that you know grows well in your garden and that you know you can grow well. For example, I've grown big beef tomatoes for the past 3 years, and I know for a fact that they're going to do well in my garden because I've grown them before. So this way, you can make sure that you're definitely going to get a good harvest. Always grow a variety you know you can grow well. That's very important because say, for example, I was going to grow all different types of tomatoes this year. So I wanted to grow all new varieties: pineapple tomato, green zebra, all these different varieties that I don't know how they grow. I don't know if they're going to do well in my garden. You're taking a risk. So you want to make sure you have a solid variety that's going to produce well for you. That's tip number 4. My 5th tip for you guys is to grow vegetables that you and your family enjoy to eat. You can see how this makes sense, right? Well, say my family hated broccoli, right? Would I grow broccoli in my vegetable garden? Probably not. Maybe I'd grow it, just for fun, just because I like the look of the plant. But in general, you want to grow what your family is going to eat. This will help you, maximize your space in the garden and be as sustainable as possible. Okay, so my 6th tip is to plant within your means. Now, what exactly do I mean by plant within your means? Well, say you worked a really high-paying job and you're only home maybe one day a week, and you don't have much time to take care of your garden. Well, you're not going to want to plant 400 tomato plants, because the thing is, you're just simply not going to have enough time to, tend to your plants and do what needs to be done. So you want to plant within your means. For example, I am currently not in school, so I can afford to plant a lot because I'm going to have a lot of time to take care of those plants. Okay, tip number 7 is to be mindful of how much sun each area in your garden gets. So for example, if I want to grow tomatoes, I want to make sure that I plant those tomatoes in a place that gets at least 8 to 10 hours a day, ideally even more if possible. But just be mindful of how much light you're getting in specific areas, and that will ensure that you don't have a disappointing crop, because certain crops like tomatoes and peppers need a lot of sunlight, and on the contrary, plants like lettuce and cooler season crops need less light. In fact, they can be sun scalded by high levels of light, so you just want to keep that in mind. Okay guys, tip number 8 is to plant in accessible areas. So what does that mean, accessible areas? Well, I think it's pretty obvious. It just means areas in your yard or in your garden that you're going to be able to get out to and have access to, easy access. Because for example, say I were to plant my garden, 50 kilometers away from my house. Am I going to be able to get out there every day to tend to my garden? Probably not, unless I have a car and a lot of time on my hands. So make sure that you plant in an area that you're going to be able to easily access every day or several times a week at least. And that's my tip number 8. Tip number 9 is plant companion plants. Okay, you've probably heard the word companion plants at least once in your life. And if not, I'll explain what they are. Basically, a companion plant is a plant that you plant alongside a vegetable crop, and its main purpose is to deter pests and diseases. And also, some companion plants can supposedly improve the flavor of fruits and vegetables, although I don't know if this is scientifically proven. But definitely, companion plants I highly recommend. I'm going to do a video on this later in the spring, a more detailed video talking about companion plants, so stick around for that. But for example, you want to grow, say, marigolds and basil with tomatoes. Now, I don't know for sure, if this actually works. I don't know 100% sure, but definitely I've read a lot about it, and it seems to work. So I don't know if there's any scientific evidence backing this up, but I would highly suggest doing it, because it probably does work. I feel like it does work because I've done it in the past and I've eliminated a lot of pests. I haven't had many pest problems in my garden, and that could be the reason. My 10th tip is to experiment. Well, what do I mean by experiment? I mean trying new varieties every year, and what this is going to do is it's going to allow you to really find what works well in your yard, in your garden. And you don't want to be growing the exact same varieties each year, because not only is this really boring, but you're not going to learn new things. You're not going to learn what new varieties would actually do really well in your garden that you actually really enjoy. So definitely try some new varieties each year, broaden your horizons a bit, try new types of vegetables. And yeah, that's tip number 10. Tip number 11 is don't grow the same vegetable in the same area 2 years in a row. Or at least try not to. If you have a small garden like me, growing the same crop in the same place multiple years in a row is pretty much inevitable. So I've been growing tomatoes in my raised beds for like 3 years now, I think. And sometimes you just can't avoid this. But if you can, I would highly suggest you try to rotate your crops. This way you're going to essentially eliminate diseases that build up in the soil of the same types of crops, and also you're going to increase that biodiversity in the soil. And biodiversity is very important to soil structure. Different microbes, different bacteria are important for different plants, and in order to grow plants well, you're going to need to have a variety of these living organisms, and make sure your soil is healthy. My 12th and final tip for this video is have fun. When you're planting your garden, it's a really exciting time of the year. You're getting everything ready. You're deciding what plants you're going to put into your garden. You want to have a good time. You don't want to be stressed out. You don't want to be it doesn't have to be a burden. So I would highly suggest you try to enjoy the moment. Enjoy planning, enjoy getting things ready, and look forward to having a great growing season. Thanks for watching. I'm Lucas from LucasGrowsBest. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next video. Peace. I'm out.